You've got a mouth full of curved, serrated teeth. Very unusual among the lizards. I mean, they're much more like shark's teeth.
My initial reaction was that I was going to be attacked, but then when it didn't attack me, that's when I thought maybe let me follow the lion.
It was about between 15 and 20 feet long. On the ferry boat, I did see a head, and it was swimming like a snake does, holding her head like this.
How did a spirit lion save the life of a soldier, and what's lurking beneath some of Canada's lakes? Animal X discovers the weird world of animal mystery. First, we investigate the legend of the frightening Komodo dragon.
It's the next best thing to a living dinosaur, a species that has survived for some 10 million years, an enormous predatory lizard that can eat a whole deer and even kill a man with one bite. Its name, the Komodo Dragon.
They say the dragons can smell a carcass, rotting carcass from 15 kilometers away. You've got a mouth full of curved, serrated teeth. Very unusual among the lizards. I mean, they're much more like shark's teeth.
Animal X traveled to the dragon's homeland, Komodo Island in Indonesia, to unravel the mystery and myth behind the world's biggest reptile. We discovered a desolate place, more reminiscent of the Arizona desert than a tropical jungle. Dangerous seas surround Komodo Island, almost as if protecting it from outsiders. The islands were formed by tectonic plates which collide beneath tempestuous waters, fraught with rips, whirlpools, and extreme tidal changes. Komodo is also home to active volcanoes and other bizarre creatures like giant spiders that spend their days basking in the sun. We took a much-traveled route to find the Komodo dragon in its natural habitat, and soon there were signs that we were on the right path. Before us, the distinctive trails left by the Komodo's tail in the sand. Then, the remnants of a recent feast, the antlers of a deer, and finally, the dragon's dung, made up of nothing more than hair and bone. Suddenly we realized we had company. Not surprisingly, nothing preys on this animal, except its own kind. The Komodo is a cannibal and will eat another lizard after it has died. Its saliva alone is enough to kill, as it contains a deadly bacteria for which there is no known cure. Such a terrifying creature should provoke some fearsome folklore amongst local villagers, and that's exactly what it's done.
There are many variations on the story as to how both the people and the dragons came to be in Komodo. And they believe that there's some kind of psychic link between them and the dragons. They believe that once long ago there was a woman who gave birth to a human child and a dragon. And she was very embarrassed about this. And the dragon went away. The dragon was upset too, and went away and lived in exile up in the mountains. She lived in exile already anyway, being ashamed about having delivered a dragon. But that the dragon would come back and visit her, being one of her offspring, and never do her any harm.
Mysteriously, the end of that tale has held true. So far, no Komodo villagers are known to have been attacked by the dragons, but on the neighboring islands, it's a different story. In 1987, a 12-year-old boy was killed by a dragon on the nearby island of Rinca. The Komodo is known to often rise up on its hind legs before attacking, its long, thick tail delivering well-aimed blows, acting as a potent weapon. Since the lizard's discovery some 80 years ago, there have been 6 reported cases of the Komodo killing people. An opportunist, the animal hunts after dark.
As opposed to the sun goes down, the dragons go to sleep. That's what you usually see. But in fact, they're really quite active hunters until 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
It was in 1976 that this fascinating yet foreboding island was to lure the dragon's most celebrated victim. Baron Rudolf von Reding-Bibereg from Switzerland had come to Komodo as part of one of the first shiploads of European tourists. The story goes that the Baron had been out trekking with his party, but became tired and told the group he wanted to rest. He suggested they go ahead of him and that he would catch up later. According to witnesses, the Baron was in view of the others at all time until suddenly he vanished. Few dispute the theory that he was taken by a Komodo dragon, becoming the first Westerner in history to meet such a fate. Despite the extensive search that followed, no mortal remains were ever found. Just some of the Baron's personal belongings, including his camera and a bloody shoe. Today, the Komodo dragon is considered a precious commodity. It's on the world's endangered species list. There are only a few thousand left in Indonesia. While this natural-born killer may have been around for millions of years, the mystery surrounding it has never diminished. A freak of nature whose survival still baffles scientists, the Komodo dragon is a living legend, which may yet survive its human neighbors.
Coming face to face with a Komodo dragon may be a terrifying experience, but throughout history, not all encounters with wild animals have had a tragic ending, especially when it's said to have been sent by a higher power to protect us, like South Africa's mysterious spirit lion.
The African lion. It's a creature of legendary power and majesty. But could it be a link between the spirit world and our own? In Africa, many people believe it is. The trail begins in the ancient stone ruins of the Monomotapa culture. It was here that historians unearthed early traces of the Monduru, or lion cult. First recorded almost 5 centuries ago, it could be much older. Animal X traveled to Zimbabwe in southern Africa, to the northeastern border with Mozambique. The kingdom of Monomotapa was a complex and sophisticated civilization, its origins shrouded in the mists of time. It's the speciality of this local historian and member of parliament.
Some of the powerful ancestors, especially chiefs, when they die, their spirits come back in the form of a cub, a little lion, which grows into a big lion.
This reincarnation theory is one interpretation. Another is the movement of a spirit from a dead ancestor to a grown lion. Traditionally, many Africans practice a form of ancestor worship. Spirit mediums like Peter Sibanda contact the spirits of departed ancestors to obtain advice for the living. Nyasha Masiwa would like to understand his own encounter with a spirit lion. Peter believes Nyasha met Queen Nahanda, the legendary resistance leader and spirit medium killed by white settlers early this century.
When she was executed, she then said, "When I die, my bones will arise and fight and continue my cause. So when Nyasha was in the liberation movement and the others, we believe they were all inspired by Mbuya Nehanda, and Queen Nehanda was a lion.
Zimbabwe's liberation forces crossed from their bases in Mozambique into the northeast of the country to conduct their guerrilla war of attrition. The fighters were mostly young, little more than school children before they took up the Kalashnikov rifle to free their country. Nyasha was one such idealist. His war name meant the one who finishes the job. His clan's totem animal was the lion. The clan totem of Queen Nehanda was also the lion. She was the spiritual inspiration of the guerrillas. An enemy airstrike took the guerrillas by surprise. Outgunned and overwhelmed, there was little they could do but scatter into their surrounding bush for cover. Nyasha had to run for his life, his only chance to evade the marauding jet that screamed overhead. His memory of that moment is still vivid.
I lost part of my section and I was alone. Then I didn't even know where to go. I was completely lost. I really couldn't figure out the directions.
Not knowing where he was, and without the support and firepower of his comrades, Nyasha had landed in a very dangerous predicament. At any moment, he might blunder into the enemy and be captured or killed. And with their presence in the area known, it was imperative to cross back into Mozambique and regain his own lines. The bush seemed alive with menace, and that's when he spotted the lion. Nyasha's first thought was escape, but the lion seemed to head him off. Warily, Nyasha tried to circle off in the other direction, but the lion turned him back.
My initial reaction was that I was going to be attacked, but then when he didn't attack me, I then started thinking about that. And also, I think during the war, we believed in the strength of the spirit mediums, and I think we always invoked the name of Mbuya Nehanda. And so that's when I thought maybe let me follow the lion.
So instead of running, Nyasha decided to trust the lion and go with it. It may seem incredible to the Western mind, but to an African steeped in a tradition of ancestor worship, it was clear that the lion intended to help him. Eventually, he found his way back. From the account of Nyasha's comrades in arms, their first thought was to hide from the lion. But the lion, it seemed, was not to be feared. To them, the answer was soon obvious. The creature was possessed by a spirit sent to watch over them. It was just as Queen Nehanda had promised.
People should not just think this is superstition, because these things do happen, but the fact that we don't understand them doesn't mean that they don't exist.
So the Monduru cult still thrives in Zimbabwe, and spirit lions, it seems, still haunt the bush.
No one knows why such creatures suddenly present themselves to us. For centuries, locals and visitors alike say they've seen monsters surface in lakes in North America. After the break, Animal X meets up with them.
That thing was going straight to us, quite fast because it was moving quite a bit of water.
Welcome back to Animal X. All over the world there are reports of lake monsters, but none are as prevalent as those in North America. One local authority has even legislated to protect whatever it is that's out there. But where could they be hiding, and what do they look like? We went on the hunt for the creatures lurking in the depths.
The inviting waters of North America's lakes may look benign, but they hold the key to a mystery. A mountain of sightings suggests that small populations of unknown creatures inhabit as many as 90 lakes in Canada and the United States. There are indications that huge prehistoric reptiles or massive serpents are feeding and breeding below the surface.
It looked like a brontosaurus. That's all I could think of, with the long neck and the small head like that.
I said to my husband, we almost can hear them breathe. You know, when you don't hear the wind or the water, you hear whoosh, whoosh.
Animal X went to the border between Canada and the US to investigate the sightings of strange creatures at Lake Champlain and nearby Lake Memphremagog. 14 years ago, Happy Marsh was sitting on her balcony overlooking Lake Champlain when she noticed something unusual moving in the water just offshore. She used her binoculars to get a better look.
There, Mom, come quickly. I think Elsie's swimming around the barrels out there. Look. Wow, and there's another one. It looks like another one that's coming in from that direction. You can see the humps really clearly.
Happy Marsh has seen Elsie, or Champ as the monsters are known here, 4 times since the 60s. On one occasion, she watched a serpent-like creature swim by from the crowded decks of a ferry.
It was about between 15 and 20 feet long, Elsie was. She had humps that were about a foot and a half long. You couldn't see air through them because they were kind of coming out of the water. On the ferry boat, I did see a head, and it was swimming like a snake does, holding her head like this.
Reports of the monsters in the lake date back to 1609. The French explorer Samuel de Champlain, who gave his name to the lake, described seeing an animal that was serpent-like, about 20 foot long, and as thick as a barrel. Early pioneers reported seeing strange creatures with long necks at nearby Lake Memphremagog.
In 1816, there were 4 sightings on this lake. At the same time, he said that the Indians would not bait in this lake because they were scared that the lake was inhabited by a monster.
Since then, hundreds of reports have surfaced, but the mysterious creatures of the deep water lakes remain elusive, rarely captured on film. A photograph taken at Lake Champlain in 1977 is one of the few exceptions. It shows the creature's long neck curved over a low, humped body. But the authenticity of the picture is hotly contested. Skeptics suggest that it's the fin of a whale. But the sightings of unexplained creatures continue. Angela Grover and her husband watched a dark creature in Lake Champlain this year.
I saw a long neck and a head and what appeared to be a hump of a bat. We came back and we debated on whether or not to tell his mother, and we did, and they kind of laughed at us, but then his mother and his aunt wouldn't go out on the jet ski for a while because of the CNET.
A billboard in Port Henry, on the shores of Lake Champlain, lists some of the many people who claim they've seen Champ. The authorities have given further credibility to the tales of lake monsters by giving them protection at a state and local level.
There were some people threatening to shoot them if they ever saw them, to try to sell them and things like that. So the village board of trustees passed a resolution then to protect Champ along the shores of the village of Port Henry.
Researchers disagree on exactly what the lake monsters are. Some suggest that they're plesiosaurs, prehistoric reptiles left over from the Jurassic era, but the creatures of Lake Champlain are most commonly likened to serpents. Skeptics claim they're simply floating logs or figments of the imagination. Richard Smith has left the monster spotters on the shore to find the truth. He's armed for the task with underwater video equipment and sonar.
You can see the bottom starting to fall off down below here. This is the bottom of the lake, of this drowned valley we're passing over. Many lakes around the world that at one time were arms of the sea, connected to the sea just after the glacial epoch, people claim that they see large unknown animals. And it's hypothetically possible that breeding populations of such animals came into these waters, they exploited the large stocks of fish as a food source, and then when the lakes closed off into the freshwater lakes we have now, populations remain.
Richard is looking for hard evidence of this. He's convinced that the creatures are at the top of the food chain, fish eaters, and to find the fish eaters, he has first to attract the fish. Then wait for the monsters to follow. Jacques Boisvert has been in pursuit of lake monsters for 20 years. He's collected more than 200 reports of sightings of unknown creatures in Lake Memphremagog, including this photograph. An enlarged extract shows a strange hump coming out of the water. Piles of testimonies, signatures, as well as drawings of giant otters, marine horses, and serpents add weight to the old Indian tales of monsters in the lake.
For instance, she saw something similar to that, and he saw something similar to that.
The accounts of strange humps appearing on the surface come from witnesses of all ages, including an 11-year-old girl.
This one here is very interesting because the drawing was made by a little girl, and the drawing was made about 15 minutes after that it did happen.
The owners of a store on Lake Memphremagog are among those who've added their names to the growing files.
Oh, I saw something sticking out of the water about that much. Black, round thing. I couldn't see if there was any eyes or ears or whatever, but that thing was going straight to us. Quite fast because it was removing quite a bit of water, you know. So I said to Mary, let's turn around and go. I want to see that, you know. She said, no way, no way. So.
Lucie Deslieres was also startled by the appearance of two strange creatures while boating.
It looked a little bit like a head of a hippopotamus, but a little bit smaller. And my husband says a little bit like a crocodile or alligator, but the nose very smaller. And the color was like blue, black, blue, and the texture looked like a whale.
Are long-necked monsters lurking below the waters of this and many other lakes in North America? Can the hundreds of sightings be explained away as giant sturgeons or wild imagination? No one can say for sure. The search for an answer goes on above and below the surface of the water. But for now, the truth remains locked in the murky depths.
It's said there are stranger things in heaven and earth than we can think of.
They say the dragons can smell a carcass, rotting carcass from 15 kilometers away.
The fact that we don't understand them doesn't mean that they don't exist.
You've just seen some of them on Animal X.